If you are a fan of fantasy romance, where the fantasy and the action don't completely take over the book and where the romance doesn't become the sole purpose for everybody's existence, then these books are for you. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be going over some extremely satisfying fantasy romance books. You might recognize some of them, you might not because they're pretty new, but I have no doubt that they could absolutely be the next famous books on Book Talk. They're that good, and I recommend them to all of my friends whenever I possibly can squeeze them into a conversation, and I always get glowing reviews back. And I love it when books are actually a perfect mix of fantasy and romance, because when books are just romance, the romance is just not as believable when there's nothing that's bringing these characters together and they just all of a sudden love each other more than anything in the world. And that's where the fantasy comes in, because fantasy is usually always high stakes and there's always just more tension going on. It's just more engaging. So without further ado, let's begin. First up, we have The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen. I just want to say that if you ever liked Percy Jackson, you will love this book as well, because it's the adult fantasy romance version of Percy Jackson. It takes place in this beautiful modern day Olympus. I bought this book because of the beautiful cover originally, but I'm so glad I did because it was so worth it. This book is major slow burn, and it's about these 12 gods of Olympus who are no longer allowed to fight each other, so they select mortals to compete to solve their disputes for them, and our main character is chosen by the god of the underworld, Hades, to represent him in this competition for who the next ruler of Olympus will be. And our main character doesn't really know why Hades would choose her, because she just doesn't stand out in any way that would make her an ideal candidate for the god of the underworld. But he chooses her anyways, and she doesn't have a say in it, so she just goes with it. People make alliances and compete in these deadly competitions just to help determine who the next ruler of Olympus will be. And the games are so high stakes, but at the same time, the plot doesn't overshadow the romance. It's a perfect blend. Like, this is one of those rare books that actually achieves the perfect in-between. And like I said, it's a slow burn as well as a love triangle, and I'm absolutely so excited to read the second book when it comes out. This is one of those popular book talk books that is definitely worth your time and 100% deserving of the hype. For our next book, we have The Night Ends with Fire by KX Song. This book is a retelling of Mulan, and as someone who loved fairy tales, I absolutely love this book. I love it when our female main characters are ambitious, they know what they deserve, and they're not afraid to fight for it. This is what this girl is right here. Even though this is a retelling of Mulan, it is still at the same time completely different. In this book, her father is cruel and wants her to ship her off for marriage just so he can get some extra cash in his pockets. She doesn't want that, so she enlists in the army and pretends to be a boy, but that is where the similarities stop. She has to push herself extra hard because they can't know that she's a woman, or else she'd be breaking the laws and they would just ship her right back to an arranged marriage, which is the very thing that she wants to avoid. But my favorite part of this fantasy romance was that even though the stakes were high and there was tons of action going on, it was also a love triangle between the prince of the kingdom, whose army she's enlisted in, and a prince of the enemy kingdom, which just added so much tension. One is a friends to lovers, the other is an enemies to lovers. I have a personal favorite of who I hope that she ends up with, and honestly I would be very upset if she did not end up with the person that I wish she would, because he is just so much better. And this book just explores a lot of things that she has to overcome as a woman who is also ambitious. This book is also pretty new, but it already has tons of reviews for good reason, and it does a fantastic job of blending fantasy and romance together. Our next book is one of the best books that I've ever read in my entire life, and that is no exaggeration. Long Live Evil by Sarah Reese Brennan. I found it in Barnes & Nobles under their featured monthly section, and it was under the title For Anyone Who Has Ever Fallen for the Villain, or something like that. But need I say more? As someone who loves the misunderstood villain, I immediately picked this up and read it in a single day. On the cover, it's recommended by Holly Black and Leah Bardugo, which are two of my favorite authors, and anything that they both say is amazing has to be amazing. The main characters in this book are all villains, and our female MC, Ray, is the main villainess. She's the brains of the whole operation. She starts off dying of stage 4 cancer when she's given the chance to live inside one of her favorite fantasy series and meet some of her favorite fictional characters. And when she arrives into this fantasy world, it's really just an alternate world, she realizes she's not there as the hero, but she's actually there as the villain. When she realizes this, she immediately starts assembling her villain crew and really is just ready to start living her life the way that she wants to. She knows exactly what she deserves, and all of the characters in this book are unintentionally hilarious. They have some of the best conversations. The plot of this book is perfection. The love interest in this book is one that will quite literally do anything for her, and he is absolutely my favorite character. I need there to be a second book from this series because this one was just so exciting and really got me out of a book slump. It's also so refreshing. After I got used to the world and the concept, I absolutely ate every word of it and was left craving for more. Next up, we have The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten. This book was just filled with so much tension and banter. Even though I get the impression that this book was sort of a love triangle, the tension between her and one of the male MCs was just one of my favorite things to follow along for. It's about this girl named Lore who is super powerful with this deadly magic, but she has to navigate this dangerous court of everybody who just is either out to get her or wants to use her for her abilities. And at the same time, she has to solve this dangerous mystery. This book was a really good blend of plot and romance. I would not like some of the main characters as much as I do if they did not do the things that they did in order to get power and stay on top of like the royal court politics. This book just held my attention for the entire time. There are plot twists happening up till the very end of the book, and I highly recommend it. Next, we have Legendborn by Celine Dion. This book was so exciting to read. It's loosely based off of King Arthur and his 12 knights and their descendants. The descendants are called Legendborn, and their powers are based off which of the 12 knights that they were descended from. Brie Matthews is our main character. She was not born into this elite secret society. She stumbled across it when she was looking for answers about her mother's death. And when she kind of first gets immersed in this world, they realize that she's actually powerful because even though she's known nothing about this world, she kind of just fits into it. The first book is super action-based with tons of banter. The romance peaks in a little bit at the beginning, but it really kicks in halfway through the book and gets even better in the second book. It is a love triangle, but I have a clear favorite. I have yet to read a book where I'm actually torn between the two love interests. I always know exactly who I want the main character to end up with, and I think the person I'm rooting for is who she actually ends up with. But Brie Matthews is one of my favorite main characters because she's so determined and loyal. She's also just such a great main character to represent women and minority. I also just found the dialogue in this book to be unintentionally really funny, with the characters just being super believable, like they really had different motivations and personalities, and this book just kept me hooked reading through the entire thing, and I'm so excited for the third book. I will most likely be waiting outside of Barnes & Noble's the day it comes out just so I can find out what happens. It's left on such a big cliffhanger with plot twists I didn't see coming, but they were so enjoyable just because I have so many new theories for what's gonna happen in the third book. Well, those are all the recommendations for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please read some of these books. They are some of my favorite books that I've ever read. Be warned, you will get emotionally attached to them. These books are relatively new, but absolutely every single one of them is worthy of being Book Talk's next popular book. If you've already read these books or have any book recommendations, I would love to know what you think, so please put them down in the comments, and I'll see you soon.